What's happening, y'all? This is DC Paul, the Millennial Arsenio, and you were tuned in to the Misbelief Living Room Session.
Living Room Session!
And we're back. We're here with our second mayoral candidate. We're here with Mrs. LaToya Cantrell. How are you?
All right, good afternoon. Doing well.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're also here with my radio co-host, Miss Oshun.
Hi, y'all.
And my homie, that actor guy, Martin Batts Bradford.
Was good.
And we don't represent all millennials in the city. We're just a handful of black creative millennials. And we got an opportunity to talk to a mayoral candidate. So we're going to take advantage of it.
Yes, indeed.
Right?
Absolutely.
So we all ask, every guest on our radio show, we ask them the first question. You know what a misbelief is?
A misbelief?
Mm-hmm.
No, tell me.
It's like a Chinese plum, a Japanese plum, the little like...
Oh, yeah.
What do you call them? Japanese plums?
Japanese plum, but there's another little name we used to call them.
Japonicas? Loquats? Japanicas?
Japonicas.
Okay. What part of the city you grew up in?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California. Been in New Orleans since 18 years old.
Actually,
30 years ago. Moved
I remember
to
saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying that on the radio before. Okay, so you don't have many memories with the misbelief fruit, do you?
Actually, yeah, I do, and I'm raising my 9-year-old daughter. So hey, we're part of New Orleans.
Yeah, share some misbelief memories with us if you have any.
I would say the tartness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest piece. Mm-hmm. The tartness.
Pass the test, y'all. So now let's get to the hard questions, right? Because there's some things that we as millennials want to know about Mrs. LaToya Cantrell. So start off with a hardball question.
Hardest
question.
Okay.
Do you eat your red beans and rice with a spoon or a fork?
I eat my red beans and rice with both a spoon and a fork, just depending on who made them, how thick, how thick it is, that sort of thing. So if it's a little loose, then I may use a little a fork or a spoon. Either way, so it depends on who's preparing them.
You red bean adesters.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think I'll allow it. Okay. So another question. Now, under the Landry administration, New Orleans saw some neighborhoods in New Orleans saw some economic growth post-Katrina, like let's say Uptown, Mid-City, and you drove out to New Orleans East. Thanks for coming all the way out here to the East, to my home. What are your plans for economic development in New Orleans East?
Well, New Orleans East is the gateway to the city of New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So we have to grow to survive. So when you look at areas of the city where the needs are the greatest, New Orleans East is one of them. Therefore, it is a priority, and want to ensure that we have predictable incentives in place so that you can attract the type of development that you're looking for, not just commercial, but also residential. So increasing the number of homeowners in the East is a priority. Mm-hmm. I know that residents in the East have gotten a little dismayed by the uptick in units that are subsidized. And there's been talk, New Orleans East does not want any affordable housing, which I do not agree with. I think that the East wants affordable housing. Mm-hmm. However, they would like to see it in the form of home ownership, single family homes, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So that is a priority, but also in regards to retail. I would love to create a town hall, a town center, a concept in New Orleans East. It's the suburbs. So you have to bring the suburban lifestyle back to the East because, hey, that's what our folks in the East have been accustomed to. And I would like to, on the front end, expropriate some key parcels off of I-10. I would like to turn those over as an incentive, layer it possibly with some other tax incentives. But you have to create a carrot in order to attract the development that you're looking for. And it also has had an impact in terms of the perceptions of the East. So we want to address some of the low-hanging fruit, get the trash out of people's eyes, clean it up. Ingress and egress matters, meaning how you exit the interstate or how you may exit a community or really how you enter a community. Mm-hmm. So those key components, that ingress and egress, really does set the tone and the perception. So we want to kind of deal with some of the misperceptions as we have with New Orleans East, create our carrots, meaning our incentives, and then therefore aggressively attract the type of retail that we want to see, as well as home ownership, and creating that town center that I want to activate with some, restaurants, some additional retail, but also creating a a miniature city hall concept, moving some of the departments and city government. You know, we do need to downsize. We need a new city hall. But in thinking through that whole concept, maybe transferring some departments to New Orleans East.
Hey, we got ample space for like retail space. I'm a lifelong New Orleans East resident, born and raised in this part of the city. I saw you had was it a town hall meeting in the East a while ago. What was that the location you were considering making your town hall central?
No, I think that when you look at a town hall concept, one, you have to look at your assets you currently have within an area. And you want to help that area expand. So you want to push it to a tipping point. So I would be looking at areas like where the Old Grand Theater is located. There's a lot of investment that has occurred there. So you want to continue to scale up where investment has already happened. And therefore you're moving the area towards a tipping point. That's where I'm looking, thinking about the town hall. But you know what? I'm bottom up. I think that the process has to include the community, and collectively we'll come up with what the best location would be. But also you have to look at the opportunities of the location. So I chose the Grand Theater because I know that the city already has a hand in that. Okay. So wrestling it, through getting our hands on it, meaning control of the land, which when you have control of the land, you can therefore control the use. It is better suited for that level of city control to therefore activate it, as such a town center, but also creating the incentives we need to do that. So you have to, it's not a cookie cutter. You really have to look at the fabric of a community, of an area, the assets that are around, and you want to expand on that.
Okay. It's hard to follow up that, but we know that you're leaving your seat in the city council.
Sure.
Are you endorsing anyone right now for that seat?
No, I am not.
Okay.
I make sure that all those who are running for District B, they have the opportunity to come to my office, see exactly what a council member does. Particularly, it's land use matters, and of course the budget. But every day it's land use. However, the City Council has to field a lot of constituent complaints regarding just quality of life issues. And so we're more like an advocate for our residents and pushing the executive branch of government, the administration, to then respond to the needs of our people.
Okay. Another thing, you're starting the Mo initiative.
Right.
Can you give us a little backstory on that and how you would proceed to go about doing that and making that a part of our New Orleans life?
Sure. Well, the Mo to Own initiative was a law that was passed almost 4 years ago. It was centered around ways to help people who are living adjacent to vacant, overgrown lots, help to mitigate the overgrownness and, of course, the dumping that ultimately occurs on many of these lots. So the thought is, if the adjacent property owner would clean it up, mow it up, keep it maintained for over a year, then based on the sweat equity and resources that the individual put into keeping it in compliance, then that would set the tone for that property to be transferred. So it does many things. One, it helps promote a clean environment and people living around it, getting the trash out of their eyes. Two, it gives people who live and are already invested in their neighborhood and in their community an opportunity to build wealth, acquire more property. And that's what we have to do if we're going to address poverty in our city, give people real access to opportunities to build wealth and, of course, to reinvest in the neighborhoods in which they live. And that really does create balance and lessens gentrification.
Speaking of gentrification, I'm glad you opened that gateway. We are having a problem right now with affordable housing. Affordable housing is a big, big thing. What can we expect from you to do to help us to keep houses affordable, make it for they have more programs for home ownership, and transition people from that rent-to-own process?
Sure. Well, I'm going to do what I've always done, and that's one, advocate for affordable quality housing. When I got on the council in 2012, no one was even talking about it, okay? And based on my track record of getting results in Broadmoor at that neighborhood level and leading it through recovery, affordability, and thinking about gentrification was a top priority for us. So this is who I am and what I focus on. So what I would do essentially is, one, ensure that we do have a strong housing trust fund. I was able to, it's a millage, it's a NIF fund right now, passed in the 90s, and it's supposed to help stabilize neighborhoods. And I found, working with our housing partners, that the resources was actually going to pay an attorney in code enforcement to be punitive to our people, therefore pushing people out. You know, they get them code liens, they say, oh, I need to sell, that sort of thing. We have to, right, so one, we have to activate and make sure that the Housing Trust Fund is working to provide soft seconds, to provide gap financing options for people, to provide down payment and closing costs for our residents, and really to provide incentives to move our people into home ownership. And not just first-time home buyers, because where we've experienced post-Katrina, we've had people who used to own a home, right? And because of the aftermath of Katrina, and people really getting screwed. Road Home program was one. And so making sure that these programs are active and accessible. In addition to that, we have to ensure that the density bonus that I approved on the city council is fully activated. That we give incentives even for developments, because it's not just, of course, it's the home ownership option, but healthy communities have a mix, and you do have rental properties as well. And so you want to provide access to resources to help that small rental property owner provide quality housing for their people, because we have an issue with slumlords in our city. And so that speaks to that quality aspect of it. The affordable housing issue, though, I'll always love to bring context to this, because we don't really talk about how we got here. Most oftentimes you hear that the short-term rental has gotten us here, and that's not the truth. The truth is that in 2008, 2009, there was a publication, a white paper written by the Bureau of Governmental Research, BGR. And the title was The House That Uncle Sam Built. And so it was making the case that New Orleans was on the path to having too much affordable housing, okay? And so this paper, this white paper, was used at the state level to make that case. And so the resources, millions of dollars that were allocated to this city for affordability, were then redirected for other purposes. That's why we're in this. That's why we're in this crisis. And so those resources had a real impact on landlords, again, small time. It had an impact on those who owned a home, who are now finding themselves no longer homeowners. It would also provide gap financing to keep people in their homes, educating people, hey, don't sell, you can fix up, that sort of thing. So this is a very complex issue, but it is nothing that we cannot overcome in our city with a real process in place and just a pathway forward, and I bring that.
All right, to switch gears up a bit, being an artist in the city, I'm an actor, and many people from film had moved into the city over the past few years. It was supposedly the Hollywood South in Georgia basically took it from us. So I want to ask, is there any plans to bring in the film industry or improving the film industry in the metro area?
Well, I think the plan should be to continue to lobby at the state level, in which that's where you got your tax credits. They were at the state level. So I think that, one, we need to continue to advocate for that. We still do have dollars in place for the industry, but we do need to communicate that, I think, much better. But I would love to see the city even partner with the industry to come up with some incentives and structure those incentives to be more attractable, for people to come on in and reinvest in our city.
Right. Because it was so close. I mean, it was there in our poems, and then next thing you know, it seems like Georgia took many of our ideas, implemented them, and then they're making billions of dollars now. So it's just one of those things that's just has been coming up a bit. Also in the arts community, like you were just talking about, it starts at the source. So are there like any plans on dealing with arts, bringing arts into like whether the schools are more so supporting it within locally, whether we're talking about musicians, theaters,
Sure.
what have you.
Well, arts and education, I mean, that's a top priority, and me being involved in education, it has been. But what I think about the arts and the whole cultural piece, we're not playing to our strengths at all. It has yet to become a pillar within how we diversify our industries. And we need to put resources there to therefore support the artists in our community. That's not just the visual artists. Right. It's also our musicians. Right. It's the masking community. You know, the social aid and pleasure clubs. The folks that we use to market the city and spend millions to market. But yet we do not reinvest in the people we market. And other cities are doing a better job than we are.
With less culture and history.
Yeah, but they're creating the framework.
Right.
They're investing. And so because they're doing that, artists are leaving us and going to these other cities because the cities are making it easy. And they're reinvesting in the culture. We have to do that. We're New Orleans.
Right.
We bring it. It starts with us.
Right.
And the fact that we have not played to our strength in that, which is our real asset, is shameful, and it's something that I will definitely do as mayor. It's a priority. Because if not, and it's just, it's in the work, but it's also in housing. It touches everything.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. And so the workforce development piece, there's a cross-pollination going on there.
Even when you say arts, I mean, there's welders, there's a people who build. It's not just the performers.
Exactly.
There's so many that divvy into that.
Exactly.
And they need places to stay.
Exactly. Exactly.
It all comes back around.
It all comes back around. It comes together, and that's why the focus has to be comprehensive and holistic. And that's how I've done my work at the community level in Broadmoor, leading it through recovery. You know, leveraging and raising millions of dollars for new construction, renovation, a public library and community center, a charter school that serves over 600 kids, an arts and wellness center that serves thousands of people every week, a community health clinic, Propeller, a social incubator for entrepreneurism. All of these things matter, and they have to, they work together.
Right.
All right. So since we're on the topic of culture, let's talk monuments for a moment.
Okay.
Because we actually, as a team, disagreed about whether we agreed with this statement. So I'm going to revisit your statement. And I quote, "It was not a community-driven process based on the concerns of citizens. This idea was thrust upon the city and the council from the top down after it was created by a small select group of individuals." So for that reason, you opposed the ordinance to have the 4 monuments taken down, right?
I opposed the process. Yep, I sure did.
Would you care to? Because we disagreed on the importance of taking the monuments down. Would you care to elaborate? Has your stance on that?
Well, I don't think I disagreed with you in terms of the importance. What I disagreed.
We disagreed. No.
Well, I don't agree. I know that the process was top down, and being someone on the New Orleans City Council that had to vote on it, it was top down. Majority African American Council was never engaged, never asked which monuments are even more offensive. When you have over 30, not only just the monument pieces, but different spaces, street names. I mean, it really goes deep in our city. So I thought that there needed to be some type of process to where we can determine which ones are more offensive to people. But someone. And it was top down, and it was one individual saying, 1, apologizing for slavery, and then 2, saying which monuments would come down. And I didn't think that was a fair process, especially within a majority African American council. I believe that we should have been consulted because we would have to vote on it. And we are African American electeds in the city of New Orleans that had no say in what was coming before us in terms of the monuments that were to come down. So for that reason, absolutely, it was top down.
So it's almost like, I hate to say it like this, if, okay, black people, we got a problem, and we saying this is the issue, and then somebody that wasn't black said, "Oh, we're gonna fix your issue and we're gonna tell you how we want your issue to be fixed."
And which ones are more?
So it wasn't even like you. It wasn't even like you even had to say whether you want. It wasn't about the importance. It was more so about how y'all want to go about it. So yeah,
exactly. And then after the vote, if you remember, then it shifted to there was one where the people were focusing on Andrew Jackson. Mm-hmm. So if there was a real conversation, a real dialogue, it would be okay, based on all that we do have, which ones with the first wave should go. Andrew was never a part of that. Mm-hmm. So it's about process. Right. Process matters. And once I realized that people were not focused on process, because it's a very emotional issue. So once I understood folks really didn't, wasn't about it right then I had to go with what I knew was right.
It's like the Capsis in the situation right now with the taking the knee of how it started with, okay, that's a really good idea, but now people don't even realize what was the original problem or what was the original issue and concern. So
I feel better.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you
for the clarity. Yeah, because we amongst ourselves disagreed on that. But thank you very much.
But what it does though, it shows us the power of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
And when we communicate, then we get a better understanding. We have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And all of us come from different places, meaning experiences. Yeah. And when you start sharing and having a dialogue, then you begin to come out of your own little bubble and try to see why people are thinking the way that they're thinking. Mm-hmm. And so we're here together. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Appreciate you. Can we go around one more round of questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so currently I think the NOPD has 1,100 officers.
1,107.
1,107. Would you like to talk public safety for a moment?
Sure.
So is it, I guess, what's the word? The opposite of recruitment when you lose.
What you have
attrition
and retention.
So the attrition rate is very very close to the incoming rate, right? You have any thoughts or ideas on how to improve public safety, and or there other incentives for new officers to enter the academy, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there are a couple things. First, we definitely need to ensure that we have leadership that has the autonomy and the authority to do his or her job. Because of that, it has created a lack of morale within our ranks. We have an unhealthy organization in that regard. And so recruitment absolutely is a priority, but it's very difficult to recruit when the perception is that your organization is unhealthy. So I do believe it starts at the top, but also ensuring that our officers, have the tools and resources that they need to do his or her job. Crime lab, for example. Our crime techs are taking their own scotch tape to the scene. That's a matter of morale. We have fewer in the homicide division. So recruitment and improving the recruitment process and strategies and effective recruitment. The administration replaced their recruitment officer several months ago or at the beginning of this year, and here recently, we found some of those recruits that were hired under that individual were arrested for rape and battery and all these types of things. So we have to have real recruitment that is tied to best practices and evidence-based, to where we get the best, the brightest in those individuals who really want to protect and serve. In addition to that, we've recently increased the pay for recruits. So that's a good thing. I had an opportunity to do that on the council. And we are increasing the pay salary for officers to focus on the retention aspect of it. So that's a big thing. We recently increased the pay for the homicide division as well, because we have to beef up there. So pay matters. The other incentives are cars. We recently learned, our officers needed new vehicles, and we changed the policy, the administration did, so they can now take home their vehicles. That had an impact when that went away. And so I think with management and real leadership in place, that will initially set the tone for a better police department. And it does start, I believe, with effective leadership.
Can I piggyback off that question? Is there something that you can say to just to be straight up, I'm a black boy in New Orleans, and I was raised to look at the cops as not necessarily a friend. You know what I'm saying? So is there a way to bridge the community and the police department together better? Because this has been an ongoing thing. We look at what's happening in the news right now. And a lot of times the police get a bad rep. Yeah. And I grew up just thinking, but then you get in positions where you need, they're needed. So
sure. I think
come together.
I think New Orleans is even unique in this because fortunately we haven't had these incidents that we've seen across the country and even in Baton Rouge. But yes, in fact, we have to ensure that we have effective neighborhood policing. And that's where the police are interacting with the community, and that includes black males. I don't think it should be in isolation, but I do believe it should be intentional. The police, for example, they would love to start the PAL again, the Police Athletic League. That was their way of being in the community, not just, midnight basketball every several months. Right. But that was something that they would do like on a daily basis, weekly basis in the community, building community, sharing, communicating. That's effective. And so I want to bring PAL back and make it a part of our neighborhood policing strategy. But the more opportunities we have to engage officers with the community and young black males and black males in general to have again that level of dialogue, which only gets you to understand one another a little bit better. It builds relationships, and I think the only way to do it is to do it. There's no other way to communicate than to communicate. Me, you, up close and personal, we looking, in each other's eyes. I think it matters.
Because the difference between seeing something as an institution and something as a person. Someone having a family, so yeah, definitely.
No, yeah, and then just in terms of biases, that people have in these different experiences, and it doesn't mean that it's a white-black thing. You get some of the attention from black officers on black children, or black youth. So it's really about communication. It's really about connecting and having a real dialogue. Look, I have a older brother, 2 years older than me, and I grew up in the household. Look. He always got the riot act. Don't have the music loud when you playing. This is when Rims was out with trucks. Don't leave the house with that do-rag on. When you drive and take that hat off. So I grew up. Really, that was just the norm. Right. And we were taught to respect authority. You get stopped, don't do yes sir. No ma'am. You have to respond to authority in a certain way and respect authority. And we were taught that.
True. And to also, sometimes authority has to understand. I'm sorry. I'm DC over there like, but I'm just saying.
No.
I don't mean to hold you up. It's just when I'm talking to somebody, like, you're saying that I can't help but have the other thought of, but, it also can be, okay, sometimes an abuse of power is very possible.
Right.
So,
it's true. It's true.
What I'm saying? I guess what I'm trying to say. So
it's true. And you know what? We have to learn restraint. It's something that we have to do, and that's for all of us.
Right.
Because if we can control our own actions, and if someone is being off, stepping over the line, you kind of have to keep your composure. It's hard. It really is hard, and it's something that you have to learn how to do, and it's not easy. It's not easy. But we have to learn it. And it's not just with the police, but it's with authority, period. Even your parents,
I'm agreeing. I'm talking about the onus of it's always the onus is on the people.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how much of that onus also gets translated to the people that have this power and authority. That's why.
No, I have you. Yeah. And that's where this training comes in.
Right.
And really drilling down in the training, diversity, biases, all those things have to be a part of the training that we give officers. Particularly, police officers, as they come with a different level of authority. They have a gun,
right?
Yeah. And this incident happened in my neighbor a couple weeks ago. Her old man was driving on in. He was about to be pulled over when he got on the parkway. Well, he didn't adhere to the signals, right? Because I'm two doors from my place, from my house. Right. So he didn't adhere to it, but he pulled in his driveway. As if that's the free zone.
Yeah.
No. And he had the little baby in the vehicle with him. He's smoking weed.
Okay,
but what I'm saying is, when he was pulled over, and then my little neighbor Keisha was livid. My baby in the car, and we're trying to, hey Keisha, calm down. And it was to the point that we had to really get her to calm down. And just, hey, you gotta calm it down. You have to respect authority. Can't come out here screaming and hollering at these officers. Calm down. We're gonna get the baby out of the car, but understand there's some drugs in the vehicle as well. And if we don't calm down, they can take your baby. Right. Exactly. So it's but it's it's the educational piece that's tied to it, and we all have to learn. We all do. And when emotions are high, and when these things happen, it happens so fast. But we have to be mindful, no matter what. Make sure that we want to make it out of this. We want to make it home alive, because it's so quick. But some people don't make it home alive.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me just say that I love the fact that you have a neighbor named Keisha. That just means you for the people, Mrs. Cantrell. So you mentioned Keisha old man, her baby daddy had some weed in the car. You don't have to do it to talk about it. So marijuana has been decriminalized here in the city.
It has been a part of that. I'm glad to be.
Okay, yeah. So what's the next step for that? What is that where we're gonna stay, or what?
Well, the next step is at the state level. As you know. And there has been some movement, even at the state level. You have LSU, you have Southern, that are now, at least in terms of cannabis, medical. That's a step. And when you look at how other states have moved forward in terms of progressive legislation, most started with miracle medical.
Miracle sometimes.
Yes, hey, but that medical, marijuana has been that step. So I'm thinking it's the right step that's being taken, and hopefully we'll see some real change.
You see us in that direction?
I see it. I mean, at least it gives me hope. And especially being on the council to ensure that people who will stop with marijuana, hey, you get your little citation, you don't be hauled off to jail.
Right. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. One more promotion.
Okay, this is the last one. So you are inheriting a lot of problems and a lot of great things. What would be the first thing that you would clean up?
Well, the first thing, there's a lot. But in terms of cleaning up, I think it really does rest with what's on people's minds and hearts. And it's around the Sewage and Water Board, the Department of Public Works, in terms of cleaning up. There's some top down, bottom up we need to do in terms of leadership, overall management, skill sets, core competencies, that can do the job. I think that's a priority. Of course, NOPD, scaling it up, we have to grow to survive, but ensuring that our officers have the proper leadership as well as tools to be effective. But you talk about clean up. I want to clean the city up. I think it's nasty. That's what I think about. Our neighborhoods are not in good shape.
Yes, ma'am.
And our people live in them.
Yes, ma'am.
And I believe in low-hanging fruit. I do. I think that little things mean so much. And if you get the trash out of people's eyes, I believe they'll be able to see things differently, just in terms of behavior, just in terms of, many different things, not just crime, but how people feel about themselves, how people really feel that the city even cares about them.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think it just sends multiple messages that we need that quick little win, just to make people feel good about being in the city of New Orleans. But it drives me crazy seeing trash everywhere. When we pulled up in here, I'm like, this is ridiculous.
It wasn't me. I just bought this home in June, and I've been trying my hardest to get on the homeowners committee and clean it up my damn self.
But then that's where the incentives come in, right? And that's where the city can create some level of incentive to speak directly to your situation, because not every, it's not cookie cutter. So you really have to go down to that ground level, that grassroots level, to see what it is people need in different places. So here, this is your place, right? And you've invested here. But how can we incentivize future and further growth and redevelopment based on your investment? You got me? Because it says something that you've taken a step. But it would really say a lot if other people start to follow your lead and come on in. And then you feel like, wow, not only did you make a good decision, because you did, but it also starts to improve your little equity, you know, help you build some wealth. And so it all kind of comes together, but it's steps at a time. But if we're intentional, then we can do it. I have no doubt about it.
No doubt about it, yo. We have had an awesome interview here with Mrs. LaToya Cantrell, even if you say my neighborhood was dirty, but we're going to fix that. Thank you so much for coming to my home and talking with us.
Absolutely. My neighborhood's dirty too. It sure is. My neighborhood's dirty too.
What parts of you
and
live
it's
right now?
unacceptable. I'm in Broadmoor.
Okay.
I've been in Broadmoor for 18 years.
I heard that.
And before Broadmoor, I was in Central City off Brainerd. And then I was third in St. Charles and Central City still. So, yeah.
Hey, sorry.
Okay.
I mean, so I was just loving what you just said, because they even say if you have a cleaner house, it helps you think better. So I can only imagine what you say about a city. I never even thought about it that deep, but that's
no, but just think about your people. Like, for example, I'm just picking Broad Street. If I'm traveling Broad 6 a.m., right? You see your bus stops filled with trash. And people haven't even really started their day yet. But that's how we're allowing our people to start their day. Shame on us. You know what I'm like, really. So I want to show people some love, and there are little things that we can do to show them that love on that front end while we work on larger goals, and we do it all simultaneously. It's not one step at a, but we have to do the small things that really do make a difference. And those visuals, people see them. It matters. We got cleaning it up, man. We can do it.
Hey, that's what's up. I want to say thanks to my co-hosts, Oshun and Martin Batts Bradford, that actor guy. I've been DC Paul, the Millennial Arsenio. Thanks once again, Mrs. Cantrell. Early voting started today, and the official day, we got 12 days left.
Yep, October 14th is Election Day.
14 days, 2 whole weeks then.
Yeah.
2 full weeks. So if you're undecided, do your research. Look at LaToya Fanola on Facebook. Google her. Watch this video again. Show it to your friends. Get some more information. Get out there and vote, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you guys. Hey, tune into the Misbelief Radio Show Saturday nights. That's tonight from 7 to 9 on WBOK. We'll be talking about this interview and more. See you guys later. And don't get nothing on you. Oh, you laughed. I made her laugh. I made her laugh. Yeah. You still running it?
Too serious.
Oh, man, great interview.
You made a believer of me.